Yes, hello, House of the Dragon. The long-awaited successor series to Game of Thrones is now just only a matter of days or a week away. Joining me today to discuss all things House of the Dragon and the state of the realm since we last spent any time over there are Elio and Linda from Westeros.org. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi there.
And journalist Chris Mandel. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Pleasure. Right, let's do this. Goodness gracious me. I did not expect to be back here in the kind of vague kind of Thronecasty universe so soon. 2019 said goodbye to the studio, to Sky, to HBO, to the Night King, we left Bran kind of like becoming the Bran the Wise and all the things that went. Jon's rambling around in the mountains somewhere. And I thought that was it. And then, of course, the prequel, the deluge of prequel rumours started to hit probably about not long after, I think probably about 6 months after, I think, Game of Thrones. And there were talks of 5 pilots being made, 10 pilots being made. And in the end, there was a pilot that was made that didn't go any further. And all of the interest and all of the money and all of the resource and all of the might of George R. Martin and everything got thrown into what we now know as House of the Dragon. And if you're new to me, I'm Jamie East. I am the co-presenter of Thronecast on Sky Atlantic. Have been for, I think, maybe about 5 seasons. I can't remember, 4 or 5 seasons. Spent kind of getting ingrained in the universe of HBO and Sky Atlantic and Belfast and meeting all the cast and the crew and the people that made the swords. So I am absolutely delighted that they decided to do this again, because hey, there's nothing I love more than talking about Game of Thrones. And joining me each week is going to be hopefully some cast members, some behind the scenes people. You never know, maybe a showrunner or two, but every single week, rain or shine, winter or summer, fire or ice, will be Chris Mandel. Chris, we've known each other for a while now, right?
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, through thick and thin, and yeah, it's really exciting to be back talking about House of the Dragon with you and going back to Westeros.
So you're a journalist, and we've kind of bonded over kind of quality dramas. Let's say you've been on the previously on podcast when we did Succession, and who I would rather have no one else as my. I'm Hand of the King to Sue Perkins, and you're my Hand of the King. How's that? I don't know what that.
Yeah, the hand is the sort of official title I've given myself, or the pinky finger on the
pinky finger on the pie. Fine, okay. You like the pod, like a mini Podrick, let's say.
Yeah, thank you.
And whenever Thronecast was stuck or were unsure of anything, or were terrified of upsetting the book people, as we used to call them in TV land, there were only 2 people that we knew who to call. Elio and Linda from Westeros.org. How are you guys?
Well, great, and it is great to be back, and it's a little surreal in some way, as you said, that this was still going to continue and it was going to be such a big production again. So it's a really interesting position to be in, and great to have a chance to get into this new show.
You are the people that George R. Martin gets in touch with when he forgets things about Westeros. Isn't that right?
That is true. He's called us maesters and his archmaesters before. We run Westeros.org, which is sort of the oldest, largest sort of fan site for the books. And we ended up working with George. We wrote The World of Ice and Fire in 2014, and we are soon having another book coming out, which is very relevant to this particular series.
So I can see it in the background for those that are watching on the YouTube channel. The Rise of the Dragon, is that what it's called?
That is correct. It's sort of a heavily illustrated companion to The World of Ice and Fire, which is very much taking the text of Fire and Blood, which is what the show is based on, and making it a bit more concise for people who thought 700 pages of history were a bit too much for them, and they wanted more art with a lot more blood and violence and dragons, lots and lots of dragons.
Great. Well, that brings us neatly into, I guess, what we should tackle first. There are going to be a lot of people that read and pored over every single page of every single book and are slavishly waiting for the next one. It seems as though you hijacked George's word processor and stopped him from finishing the bloody things to do the Rise of the Dragon with him. And there are others who were more casual viewers of the show, knew that the books existed, but didn't really kind of venture into that land, and for many reasons. But it's rare that we get to kind of start a Game of Thrones adventure from a completely blank slate. Are we at a blank slate, though, or is this based on something that already exists, that people already know what happens?
It's a good question. Obviously, Fire and Blood is a book that George wrote, in part because of the Wars and Fire, where he created Targaryen history, and it was so big that we couldn't put it all into the world of Ice and Fire. And then he published Fire and Blood. But a lot of people don't really know about it. However, there have been references to the history of Targaryen in Game of Thrones, and in fact, some very specific references to the future events of House of Dragons in certain episodes of Game of Thrones. Or in fact, technically, if you watch Game of Thrones, you've already been spoiled.
Joffrey spoiled you. Of all the people, Joffrey has spoiled you if you watched Game of Thrones.
It would be that little shit.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Shit, wouldn't it? What I mean, I guess, are they even spoilers? If what I think we can probably delve into those, can't we? What do we already know? I mean, we know about the Mad King. We know generally about how the Targaryens. We knew that the Targaryens were in power for a long time. We knew that there were tons of dragons. We all knew that it went horribly wrong at some point. But aside from that, I guess we're talking about throwaway lines or kind of things that were casually mentioned.
Yeah.
This is Chris, are you aware of these? Do you know what Elio and Linda are going to divulge?
I have a passing knowledge of the Dance of the Dragons, which is the event that I understand forms a lot of the events of this series. I sort of know the rough outcome. I wouldn't say I could tell you like in what order things go down, but it's such a... I considered getting into the material before the show because I really enjoyed having read the books before watching Game of Thrones. Like, I really loved having a slightly extra layer of understanding of what was going on and sometimes what was left off the screen. And I haven't done that this time because it was a little bit intimidating. And so I don't really know. I just know that the Targaryens, it's like a civil war between different factions of the families, and it doesn't end well.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that civil wars rarely come out nice and neat. So that's sort of what one can be expecting in the sort of the large scale, that nasty and brutish.
So what was the thing that Joffrey gave away then?
Oh, well, he kind of tells us the fate of one of the major protagonists or antagonists of the war. So let's not touch that. Yeah. But basically, it's kind of funny, but basically, it's a throwaway line here. But it's a lot of things, like, people were concerned about Game of Thrones and how going past the books would ruin it for people who are waiting for the books. And I've always been, and I think it's the same in this, it's the journey that matters. It's how you get to this point. It's one thing to hear so-and-so kills so-and-so. It's quite another to see how and why it happens. This is what House of the Dragon is going to give viewers who are familiar with material and who aren't familiar with material.
I mean, you can watch a history movie that's based on a historical event, and that Caesar is going to get very stabbed at the end if you're watching something about Caesar's rise to power in Rome. Most people know that it's not going to end that well for Caesar, but you can still really enjoy watching what somebody does with the story.
No, for sure, and I think that's what a lot of book Game of Thrones book fans are waiting for the book. Obviously, the TV series, splitting the fork in the roads they left towards the end. Now, fabled has it. Now, I don't want to dwell on Game of Thrones too much because we're in a new dawn, but legend has it George sat down with Daniel and David at the very early days and said, here's the end point. How you get there that can be pretty fluid, but we can assume that even in George's mind, Bran was on the throne. Jon ended up in just sodding off to to the wilderness again. You know, all of those things we can assume. So I agree with you. The journey is how we get there. Right. Okay. Let's set the universe, because prequels are really tricky to kind of set. We remember Westeros as being kind of ashes, really. The last time we saw it, it was rubble. It was, you know, King's Landing pretty much was gone. There was just a white horse kind of charging around, if I remember last time. And prequels have a tendency to kind of go, this was before, you know. I'm thinking of the Star Wars prequels when they tried to. We were used to dirty, knackered old Jedis, and then all of a sudden we were in this opulent kind of like story about taxation. What's the universe like in Westeros in House of the Dragon?
Well, at this point in time, Westeros has seen unprecedented levels of peace and prosperity. It is actually, really, it is the high point of the Targaryen dynasty. So it is a very opulent time. It's a very potentially decadent time, and it's a time full of colorful figures and, you know, grand tournaments and balls and
lots of dragons.
And lots of dragons.
Okay, so we've given people a bit of the history of the universe of Westeros and where we are in the grand scheme of things. Let's talk now about how they've brought it onto the screen. As those who may or not know, Daniel and David, who are the showrunners of the original Game of Thrones, whose vision it was, you know, to bring this whole thing to life originally, are no longer attached to it. You know, I would imagine they're quite relieved about that. At this point in their lives, they're glad not to have to worry about taking on this legacy. But the people that have taken that on are people that, if you've watched all the TV shows, you'll be familiar with. Miguel Sapochnik is who directed, you know, arguably or even unarguably some of the best episodes of Game of Thrones, or certainly the most memorable ones. Hard Home, which was the episode where we first really saw the Night King's power, and he gave it the big "come on, brother" to Jon on the shore. Battle of the Bastards and The Long Night. All three of those still give me goosebumps. You know, whenever I need a cheer, well, maybe not cheer up, but whenever I need to kind of like feel good, I go and watch those episodes. So Miguel directed those. He's directing a few of these episodes, but he's kind of like the daddy of this now. And then we've got Ryan Condal, who he's also an experienced showrunner and an Ice and Fire super fan as well. We're in safe hands with these guys, right? Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, without any shade intended to the people behind Game of Thrones, I think it's a great idea to bring new people in at the helm to run this, because I think we talked before the break about prequels. I think the worst thing you can do is try and recreate what you're a prequel to. So I think this should feel different to Game of Thrones, but have a lot of the same aesthetics and a lot of the same identity. And I think having someone like Miguel, who's directed the really meaty, cinematic, beautiful, and intense episodes, is a great idea. I think Ryan is also someone who sort of understands the beating heart of the show quite well. I believe he is someone that, like George R. R. Martin, is very fond of in terms of his understanding of like lore, but also what the show or what the books are and what they're trying to say. So I think I'm really interested in what they do differently. I'd be really interested in how they can make House of the Dragon sort of look and feel different to Game of Thrones, while also sort of threading it with a lot of the same things. But I think it's really cool. It feels like the biggest fans and the most talented people from Game of Thrones are kind of front and center, which is like, what more could you ask
What do you
for?
think, Elio and Linda?
I think it's great. Miguel, Hard Home was an amazing episode. He's done a lot of other things that I've seen. That's all really good. And I know that he actually first worked with Ryan Condal on a pitch for a Conan the Barbarian TV series. And actually, Condal is not just a super fan of Ice and Fire. He's a super fan of the genre in general and the Hollywood movies. In fact, he, like you, Jamie, he is a podcaster. Which I found. I've been listening to his podcast about collecting props, and it's really fascinating stuff.
I thought you were going to tell me it's about House of the Dragon for a minute. I thought I was in real
trouble. No. He has a podcast with another writer called The Stuff That Things Are Made Of, which is all about they're collecting Hollywood movie props and they love the classic, films. They love Alien and Blade Runner and Star Wars. So it's all all in our wheelhouse. So I've enjoyed that. So I just listening to him, and he's dropped some hints about things he's been working on House of Dragon, the things he cares about. He has a lot of passion for it, and I am very much looking forward to how it comes out on the screen. Certainly, bits of a trailer have really captured my imagination. Like, there's clearly a big tournament in in the show, which we see some of the action in those trailers, and I think back to Game of Thrones, that first season where no one knew. David and Dan had not run shows before. They were brand new to it, and HBO had given them all this trust and a certain amount of money. And I remember them telling me afterwards, like, we ran out of money. We couldn't do the whole tournament. So we had bad weather, and so we had to kind of find some way to cut it short. And it became a very small tournament. So seeing finally this really big tournament is going to be really cool.
And what kind of, I mean, do dragons take part in the tournament, or is it more traditional swords? And because that would be a very short tournament, wouldn't it? Really, it'd be quite chaotic.
It would have been a very short tournament. No, it is the style that we're used to from A Knight's Tale and what have you, with knights riding at each other in the lists, and
Right.
it seems occasionally getting into each other with the swords as well, and so on. So it is a proper medieval tournament, not on Dragonback. That would have been an interesting version with the knights going at each other on Dragonback. Maybe that'll be something we'll see later on in the show.
Do you know? I mean, I don't know if anybody really knows. Really, Miguel's kind of forte is the big set piece. It's the episode long battles, the stunts, the thousands of extras, the CGI. We can expect at least 2 or 3 of those things, right? We can expect there's going to be. What's that 9 going to be? For goodness sake,
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's some major stuff that happens, I think, across the whole of the events that they're going to cover. Knock on wood, the second season hasn't been confirmed, but I think, I assume it'll happen.
We wouldn't be here if we didn't think a second season was coming. What a waste of time that would be, right? Can you imagine if they cancelled this? I said, actually, no, we're done. Actually, we're tired now. No, goodness me. We mentioned it before. The money is all on the screen this time round. Chris, you talked about it. You look back to the first episode of season 1 of Game of Thrones and Jaime's wig, and it's all pretty. It's Cersei and Jaime going at it in the tower with all the hay. It just looks like It looks like. Do you remember the touring theatre at the end of in the latter season of Game of Thrones? That's what the first seasons just look like all the time, right?
Yeah.
Tyrion's hair looked like he'd just stepped out of a salon.
And the big one for me is the hunt, that they didn't have the money for the hunt, so it's a Monty Python version of the hunt where the guys are they've almost got the coconuts for the horses because they're walking in the woods going hunting with the king, and it's just about time to bring in the coconuts. So no, it's quite clear that this is as you said, this season 8 money from the get-go by the looks of it. And it's going to capture the scale of Westeros right from the start. And we'll see it not just at a point where it's a full-on war, basically. We'll see the scale of what the money can buy you in peacetime, so to speak. We will have the dragons out and flying with the riders. We will have this great tournament, and there will be various conflicts and such to sort out, even in the first season, that should look fantastic because of the direction and the money.
Do you think they're going to be able to, Chris? Do you think they're going to be able to maintain the level of political intrigue and betrayal and shock that we've come to expect? People are going to be watching episode 9 of season 1 of House of the Dragon, going, "This is the one. This is the one. Who's going to get it?"
Any minute now. Yeah, well, I think that's just before I answer that question, I do think when I mentioned earlier, I hope they sort of don't stick to the script too much. I really hope they aren't episode 9's the big cliffhanger, guys. This is a really big opportunity for them to reinvent the wheel or break the wheel or whatever reference you want to use from the show. But in terms of, I think there's going to be so much intrigue because what I understand, and bear in mind I understand a lot less than Elio and Linda here, but what I understand is this is one family collapsing from the inside, and I think that is just a different way of thinking about this political intrigue. It's still the same idea that people want the throne. There are people vying for power, and there are different factions. But I feel like we're exposing this from a very different angle, and I think there's a lot to explore because I think it's all these people that are inherently part of one identity, one house, Targaryens. What does it mean to be a Targaryen? What does it mean to rule? That's always been a sort of central theme in this show. And I think rather than having different families vying for it, you've got this central tenet that is not in agreement on who should rule. I think the thing about Game of Thrones is like the show ran the full gamut, all the scheming, all the manipulation. But I mean, if there's this much material to do a show off, then I feel like we almost maybe haven't seen anything yet in terms of what people will do. We know it ends horrifically, so I can only assume there's a lot of
one thing that we do know about Targaryens, even those that have only watched a few episodes of Game of Thrones, Targaryens are mental. they're just mental. And now we've got a whole season where they're all in charge and they're rich and they've got castles and dragons and soldiers, and that alone is pretty tantalizing, right? It's ripe for high drama. Let's talk about the characters and the people that are going to be playing them. Elio and Linda, tell us in as succinct as a way as you can, to those that don't know. We'll start at the top. King Viserys Targaryen. Who hell he?
He is the fifth Targaryen king to rule over 7 kingdoms. He is the grandson of Jaehaerys, the old king who brought 50 years of peace and plenty to 7 kingdoms, and he loves to party.
He loves to party, brilliant, excellent. And he is played by Chris. He's played by Paddy Considine.
So we've got Paddy Considine playing King Viserys Targaryen. I mean, he is one of the finest actors we've produced. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I loved him in Journeyman. He was amazing in that. He's just such an amazing person to anchor this show. I think he's got the sort of he feels like a combination of like Mark Addy and Sean Bean in terms of he's quite grave, but also I think has a really fun side to him. And he's just a legendary actor. And I think having him kind of helm the series, or the first series at least. I mean, I assume like he starts, he's the king. Can't imagine he lasts for long. That's just my theory. That just feels like a really exciting point to start the show off, having a legendary actor.
100%, yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay, next up, we've got Daemon Targaryen. Linda, who hell he?
Oh, he's a very colorful figure. He is the brother of King Viserys, and he is someone who's going to be, I think, a very strong, forceful personality on the show, because I think George has said he's his favorite Targaryen, and that means he is extra everything.
And he is played by someone very familiar to British TV fans, Wibbly Wobbly Time Lord, Chris.
Yeah, Matt Smith is playing him, which I think again is just the most inspired casting. Like, if you want to have faith in what this is, you've got Paddy Considine and Matt Smith playing brothers, very different. I just think Matt Smith, apart from his recent stint in Morbius, is an absolutely brilliant actor, and he always chooses his projects very carefully. And I think having him as this charming, scheming, nefarious, handsome, swashbuckling kind of dragon riding, super.
I have to agree. I saw the trailer.
So,
when I think the early photos of him on the beach, shot down in Cornwall in England, came out. It's like, oh wow, okay, this looks pretty cool. But when the trailer comes out, we'll beat this. But I was like, my God, he looks like a right. I love it.
He's actually called. Sorry, he's actually called the Rogue Prince in one of the bits that George has written about him, and David reminds me of that line about Lord Byron. He's mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
Yes, that's what we want from Doctor Who. Fantastic. And a bit behind the scenes for everybody. When I did my Thronecast wisdoms a couple of weeks ago to talk about all the Targaryens, and for some reason I could not get this name right. First of all, it was Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra, is it Rhaenyra, right?
Yeah.
It's Rhaenyra Targaryen. Elio and Linda, the first lady of House of the Dragon that we're going to meet.
She is the daughter of Viserys. She is, in fact, the only child of Viserys at this point in time. And there's a big question mark about that, whether in Westeros is very misogynist, very sexist, and people are kind of questioning, can she really be queen? So, in fact, when I think the show starts, in fact, the heir to the throne is the king's brother Daemon. But there may be questions about that as the show progresses.
For reasons that we'll go into now, there are two actors playing Rhaenyra.
Yeah, this is something that Game of Thrones didn't really do until later on, but there are flashbacks, so we're getting characters in different stages of their lives. Emma Darcy is playing Rhaenyra as an adult. Emma identifies as non-binary and uses they, them, whereas the character is female. And Millie Alcock is playing a young Rhaenyra. Now, I don't know a lot about Emma Darcy, but all the promo leading up to the show, Emma just comes across like a total rock star. And I feel like Emma is going to be the breakout star of this first season. I think just everything they embody, just honestly, like I just get this amazing energy from seeing them on the red carpets, doing interviews, doing press. And I just think it's a really exciting, we've sort of had this in Game of Thrones, women born into a very male-dominated system, trying to carve out space for themselves. But I think this could be a really exciting addition to that sort of storyline. I'm just really excited to see where it goes.
Brilliant. And now, here's a couple of names, or a family that the viewers of the TV show will have no clue. If you're like me, it'd be like, wasn't this the really big policeman in Police Academy? But Otto Hightower is Hand of the King. Now, Hightowers, I've never, I've not read the books, as you guys know. I wasn't allowed to, and I still haven't read the books because who's got the time for that at the moment? But Hightowers, where were these in Game of Thrones?
Well, they are an ancient family. So they've been in Westeros for ages. So they were absolutely around in the timeline of Game of Thrones. They were a storyline and characters that did not end up featuring in the stories that were portrayed on the TV show. But they were definitely there. They are their seat, the High Tower, is in Old Town, which is the second largest city in Westeros. So it's a very important place. That is also where the Citadel is, where the Maesters go to learn, and it's also important for the fate of the Seven. So they are very significant, very influential, very rich, and they have a much bigger role to play, politically speaking, at this time period.
Okay, and Otto is the hand of King Viserys, right? Perfect.
Correct.
So he's like, if we're going to draw comparisons to people that want those comparisons to the TV, Otto Hightower is the Ned Stark to the King Robert, right?
That's right. He's unlike Ned. He is a
player of the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he plays Game of Thrones. He's ambitious, and he's a very learned man. He's very
okay, great. So a lot less passive than Ned Stark, then. Fair to say.
Yeah.
Right. And Chris, another British great.
Yeah, Rhys fans, absolutely amazing. I just think this season the casting on it is incredible. I just think him and Paddy sort of bartering about what to do. It's kind of hard, isn't it? Because I don't have any idea what happens. I just know there's going to be a lot of fallings out about who's owed what. But yeah, I'm really intrigued because I remember the Hightowers from the books very vaguely. I knew that Old Tower was sort of where they were based. I couldn't remember if any of them had been in the books or if whatever. But I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool that the Hightowers and the Sea Snake, who probably are about to talk about in a second, is going to be in the show because these are very.
If you were casting House of the Dragon, let's compare. It's very difficult to compare, but Nina Gold did a terrific job of spotting Maisie and all of that gang from Game of Thrones, for which was a completely unknown quantity and unknown title. Everyone was a bit sniffy because we just had Lord of the Rings, so it must have been tricky to cast that. I can't imagine there were that many no's thrown Kate's way this time round. I would imagine, hiya, I'm just calling about House that. Yes. You know, that's how most of those must have gone, right?
Well, I believe Paddy Considine had said no to Game of Thrones, hadn't he? I think that just he noted in an interview.
Yeah.
So he got a second chance.
Yeah, I mean, he was lucky to get that second chance for Alaska.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to find out. I'll find out next week, Chris. I'm speaking to him on Monday. I will ask the young man.
He would have been. I think he would have been a good Littlefinger. Maybe a little bit too like a little bit.
Maybe he was
rugged for that, but he could have been a good.
Maybe he was like a Ned Stark, but just considered too young, or he thought he was too young. You know, wasn't Piers Brosnan offered James Bond like just before Timothy Dalton, but thought he was too young? You know, maybe it's a bit of that.
I think casting the younger characters is such an art, because when you cast someone like Maisie or Isaac, you're really also casting them for who they're going to be in 10 or 11 years' time. And the casting on Game of Thrones was immaculate, and I think everything on this, as you said, the success of the show.
Who wouldn't want to be able to earn their pension from Comic-Con for the next 35 years? Imagine
and have an action figure made of you.
Okay, Otto is Rhys Ifans, and then we've got presumably his daughter Alicent Hightower. Is that right? Daughter?
Yeah, correct.
What do we know about her?
Well, she. So I'm not really sure the show's doing this, but in Fire and Blood, she was brought by Otto during the reign of King Jaehaerys and his last years. He was the old king. He was very old, and he was, getting a bit senile in his old age. And she would read to him and just be sort of a companion and a comfort to him. And I gather she sticks around, and her story gets a lot bigger than that as time goes by.
I love these these ellipses we're getting at the end of Elio all the time. It's like only time will tell. It's brilliant. Okay. This is a character I'm really excited to kind of find out about. It's I guess the most visually striking from the trailer, and it's like, wow, this feels slightly progressive for Game of Thrones, but it also feels quite exciting. It's Corlys Valerion, is that right? Have I pronounced that right? Please help me.
I think they're saying Valerion, actually. Yeah.
Corlys, is that correct? Is that the first name? This is the
Corlys
sea
is
snake,
correct. Yeah.
who we know as the sea snake. If you watch the trailer, it's the awesome looking dude with the white dreadlocks. That's all you need to know. What do we know about the sea snake, Elio and Linda? Who is he?
Oh, he's an amazing character, actually. He is the greatest explorer of his age. He has famous for his 9 voyages across unknown parts of, and then he married a Targaryen princess, and has become the richest man in the 7 Kingdoms. He's richer than
this guy. This guy's got everything. Wow. Okay. Fine. And is he has he pledged an allegiance to any particular house? To any kind of is he kind of floating around Littlefinger styley?
Sure, he is. So he rules the seat of Driftmark, and it is an island that's right next to Dragonstone. Officially, he is sworn to Targaryens, and his family have had a long association with Targaryens. They commanded the ships ever since Aegon the Conqueror landed. It was a Valerion who was commanding his fleet, and they have traditionally commanded the whole fleet of the 7 Kingdoms.
This guy sounds like a cross between Indiana Jones, the Jack Sparrow that it's still okay to like, and Magnum PI. He sounds great. Now, let's move on to someone who I am like super excited to find out about and learn about, mainly because I'm such a big fan of the actress that's playing her. Princess Rhaenys Valerion. Is that right, Rhaenys? I pronounced that right? I'm getting it all out now, so for the next 10 episodes I get it right. this, I think, and I know nothing about it, but I get the sense that her character is going to be intrinsic to the implosion of what we're about to watch. Would that be fair to say? She seems to carry a lot of bitterness, Elio and Linda.
She does, and it's not for nothing. I mean, she's called the Queen Who Never Was. She was one of the people who could have inherited the Iron Throne at one point, but was passed over for a male heir. That was when they basically made the decision to look at, okay, can we have a female who's going to inherit Iron Throne? And that could have been Princess Rhaenys. It didn't happen, so some people refer to her as the Queen Who Never Was, and she hasn't quite gotten over that.
Viserys' cousin.
That is correct.
Okay,
yes.
So I guess then that the question around whether Rhaenyra is allowed to be the queen, to sit on the throne, would rankle her greatly. It's like, well, how the fuck is she allowed on the thing if I wasn't? That kind of thing, I guess.
It certainly, I mean, she wasn't just passed over once, actually. She was passed over twice for the throne. So she definitely has that. But, she did make a very good marriage. Of course, Valerion, this wealthy, influential, exciting figure. And there's one other thing. She has a dragon.
Okay, right. So just to clarify, she's the wife of the sea snake. That's correct. Right. Okay.
That
fine.
is correct.
And yeah, so are you allowed? So you don't have to you don't have to hand in your dragon if you lose the Targaryen surname.
No, and technically, actually, in the books, it's quite common to still refer to women of very prominent houses who marry. For example, we tended to see Cersei referred to as Cersei Lannister, even though she was married to Robert Baratheon. So quite often, Rhaenys is referred to as Rhaenys Targaryen. Because that is the more prominent house of the two, and she sort of keeps that connection. It has a little bit of the pride thing. She's going to keep the more powerful name, and then once you have a dragon, you have that dragon for life. It is a bond between dragon and rider. You don't have to hand in your dragon rider card.
You take whatever the hell you want. Sir Kristen Cole, who hell he? Elio and Linda. He's next on my list. We've got a couple more.
Kristen Cole is a relatively poor knight. His father was a steward for a lord in the Dornish marches. And I believe on the show they decided to clarify that he is actually of a Dornish descent or partially Dornish. The Dornish marches border Dorne. And he is a knight who shows up at a tournament and turns out to be surpassingly skilled. And he an ambitious young knight and have a big future in King's Landing.
Okay, so we don't know. He's as new to all of the characters in the House of the Dragon when we meet him, is he? Right, brilliant. I like all of that. And who's playing him? I don't recognise him, Chris. Tell me about him.
No, this is someone that listeners may not be that familiar with. It's Fabian Frankel. Relatively new name. What I will say, he has a relationship to Game of Thrones in some ways, because he was opposite Emilia Clarke in the 2019 film Last Christmas, which...
Oh my God, was he?
I love this film. Yeah, he's one of the guys that she...
Oh, he is, isn't he? Yes. Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. I just want to say, I love this film so much, and everyone hated it when it came out. I know we're recording this in August, but Jamie, it's so good.
Chris, it's a sack of shit. It's a sack of shit, mate. Come on.
The thing is, though, if you move past that,
the fact that it's a sack of shit.
No, it's so good. It's so good. It's better if you know the twist, because you can stop thinking, oh, they're trying to make this a plot twist. Anyway, he was in that. He's going to be great in this. Justice for Last Christmas.
Is it too late to cancel this?
It's such a fun film.
Well, let's hope Fabian can exercise those ghosts and move on from that.
Yeah.
And finally, on the list of ones to watch for everyone listening is Miss Aria. I've just got one word. She's the Beyonce. She's the Madonna. She's the Adele. She's the Rylan of House of the Dragon. She's got just the one name. What do we know about Miss Aria?
Aria is also a sort of character that's going to be unknown to a lot of the characters in House of the Dragon, but she got an association with Prince Daemon, and she's going to play a fairly significant part as we go on. But it's difficult to say that much about her without being spoilery, except that she's got a close connection to him, and she's a foreigner to Westeros.
Okay.
That's part of the reason that she's just got the one name. She doesn't have a family in Westeros, so she's a foreigner.
I'm gonna kind of go down to Ladbrokes. I'm gonna say she's a baddie. I'm gonna say she's a baddie through and through. I'm looking at her cast picture. She's giving it the side eye. She's going, Targaryens, I'm gonna fuck you up. That's what I'm getting from her. Am I warm or cold? Am I fire or ice?
Yay! Fire.
There we go. I mean,
yeah.
Ooh, okay.
The thing you've got to remember though that it is a civil war, so there's Targaryens on both sides.
This is true. What I'm also excited about is that these are like the ones that are being presented to us as the main characters. What we don't yet know are the ones that we're going to fall in love with, that we didn't know that we were going to fall in love with at Game of Thrones. I'm thinking about, like Littlefinger became such a big part of our lives, and yeah, not bit players, but just really the Hound. I don't think we've met our Hound this time around. So it's things like that, isn't it, that make this show so great? Is that it's such an intrinsically and well developed universe that everyone arrives fully formed and fully developed, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. Chris, what are you looking forward to? We're looking forward now to episode 1, season 1, episode 1 of House of the Dragon. We know a little bit from what we've garnered from Elio and Linda today. What are you hoping for?
In the first episode?
Yeah.
I think I just want to see... that's a really good question. What I'm most looking forward to is the discord, the sort of sense of chaos looming, because I think with Game of Thrones, there was this sense from the very start something was wrong. There was a sense that something was going to shift, some gears were shifting, there was some sort of embers that were going to spark. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing that moment when, from what we've been talking about today, it sounds like it's a fairly peaceful period in the kingdom, and there's a sense of relative calm. I'm just looking forward to that first crack in the glass to see that everything's going to go to shit.
Good phrase. And yeah, you picked up on something quite important there. It was one thing that I'm not sure we're going to get in House of the Dragon is that impending sense of doom that we had from, winter is coming was such a wonderfully coined phrase. And like you say, the first shot of Game of Thrones season 1 was that kind of symmetrical shape of the body parts in the snow, and you knew that there was something that just could not be stopped. There was this unstoppable force coming to kill everything in its sight. I'm presuming we don't have that kind of element in House of the Dragon, so this is very much a different kind of beast, and we're going to have to kind of like attach ourselves to a different path, right, Elio and Linda?
Yes, I mean, here we have more, the politics are not just the thing that is going to sort of be the distraction from the looming threat, which in a sense was the story of Game of Thrones, that everyone was focusing on trying to gain the Iron Throne, whereas this threat against the existence of mankind was looming over them. But here we're talking more about that the politics are the meat of the whole story, and we're looking at the impending doom of a family rather than of the whole kingdom. But obviously, when you're talking about the ruling family, that can still upset the cart for a lot of people.
Amazing, brilliant stuff. Listen, let's wrap this up. We've had a great episode. We've talked about so much now, and if we've done anything for any listeners or people watching on the YouTube channel, I'm now 10 times more excited to watch this show than I was an hour ago. I cannot wait. Elio and Linda, hopefully we can get you back at some point a bit later on in the series to kind of have a bit of catch up and see how you guys are getting on and how you're enjoying it. In the meantime, can you let listeners and viewers know how they can find out a bit more about you?
Sure. You can see us at our website at www.westeros.org. I'm also on Twitter as Westeros.org altogether. And we have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Westeros.
Brilliant. Get all of your questions onto Elio and Linda on Twitter. They love it, and they'll just answer them all. And Chris is going to be joining me every single week. Sorry about that, Chris.
Yeah, you didn't ask where people can find me. I'm just around most of the time, just trying not to melt in the heat. So
you're going to be here. Yeah, You'll be here.
He's still allowed to join you every week, despite the Christmas movie thing.
Yeah. Jamie.
Well, we'll debate that. I mean,
I'm going to come around to Jamie's house.
Speak to his agent.
Make him watch it.
So thanks very much for listening, everybody, to this. I'm not going to say episode 1. It feels like a bit of a prologue because we're going to be speaking after every single episode of season 1 of House of the Dragons. I think we're going to put it live. It's going to get published at the same time as Thronecast would have been published or would have been broadcast on Sky, which would be after the evening episode on Sky Atlantic of House of the Dragon. And just want to say a big shout out to all of my friends at Sky TV and Now for their help. And if you are in any way confused about where you can watch House of the Dragon and you're listening in the UK or Ireland, you go to sky.com and have a look there. It's all the details are on there. It's on demand. It'll be streaming. It'll be everywhere. You will not be able to escape it. We're back, baby. Westeros is back. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time. There will be a new episode of Dragoncast, home of House of the Dragon, every single week. Do us a favour, subscribe, like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at dragoncast.pod or send us an email, dragoncast@daftdoris.com. Thanks very much.